Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. So glad you could join.
Thank you so much. So just a reminder that the session is being recorded and it's going to be shared with you on email afterwards. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to use the Q&A feature of the Zoom call, or you can also share your questions in the chat. So I am very happy to start the session because everyone is super excited to understand a little bit more about the process. So I would like to give the microphone to Kasia. Kasia, please, the stage is all yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Isabella. And if we can move on to the next slide. Before I start, I just want to say, please don't be shy. As Isabella said, please ask any questions in the Q&A box. We are happy to answer it at the end of the session. This session is especially dedicated to all of you. I know, going through this entire process of with the university, with the particular university you applied for, as well as the visa, can be very nerve-wracking and stressful. However, we are here to support you. There is an entire team that we have built in order to support you with guidance, as well as um, any guidance that you may need ahead of your visa um, interview. And I'm particularly to referring to anybody who's joining, as in if you are a student, as if you are an educational advisor, or anyone from in between the process as well. So thank you all again for joining. And today we're going to start just in terms of the overview. So I think it's very important to understand the journey and be very well prepared in order to, pass this process in flying colors. And just, I'm sure all of you are already specialists and you understand the US process in terms of what it takes for you to get to that final place, which is applying or passing your visa interview. But in order for you to even begin this journey, you need to have obviously your I-20, which is a document that you receive from the specific university you applied for, and only that document will allow you to apply for your visa, for your to make your visa application. You need to obviously pay your service fee, which is a very important fee, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Um, DS-160 application form is obviously part of your visa application. You need to fill in that application form in order to apply, as well as make your $160 application fee. Um, and then prior to you attending, so once you've booked your visa, prior to attending your actual visa appointment at your local embassy, it's very, very important that you set up a guidance session. I don't like the word preparation. I think it's very important for you to prepare for the right reasons for yourself, and for you to understand why have I chosen this particular university. Of course, the feedback that you're receiving, and I'm talking to all the students here on the line, but I understand that there may be a lot of educational advisors as well. You know, you have the right reasons as to why you've applied for a particular university, and this is very important that these are prepared, and you know exactly why. And in order to help you, just to maybe navigate through all of that information as you're going through your research and your preparation process, there is a session that I'm going to talk about that is completely free of charge, that you can book. So that is your step four. That is absolutely that is very, very important. If you miss that step four, often we see that students fail their visa because they've missed that. They haven't sought further help. So I would strongly recommend that you are not missing that step four. And then step five is the visa preparation session, or the visa guidance session. When you go through the link, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, you will see that you have two options to choose from, which is super exciting. And then there is step six, which is obviously you attend your visa, your actual visa appointment, and then you ensure that to share your visa details, or your visa details, which is your visa appointment with us. When is that appointment? And then once the result comes out, which is you've passed or you failed, you share that with us as well alongside with the slip. irrespective of whatever reason, if you've passed or failed. So if we can move on to the next slide. So that's just a summary of the process. What is your document checklist? I'm sure all of you know all of this, but let's go through this again. Passport, previous and current. So remember that prior to traveling to the USA, your passport needs to be at least valid for 6 months, because otherwise you wouldn't be allowed to travel. But you always want to have a lot more, in terms of just your passport, just to be on a safe side. So you make sure that your passport that you've applied, if your passport is running out, you've applied for it in advance, because don't forget that obviously if your visa is accepted, you will need to be your documents will be retained as well. So you just don't want to have to do that, or all of that at the same time. So you want to do that in advance, and then you have your I-20 form, which is signed and dated. It's very important that it's the student that signs the form themselves. There is the service fee payment, which I'm going to talk about in a second. It's $350 at the moment, but obviously that may always change. So always check the relevant website that is provided. And you receive your DS-160 confirmation, which is a confirmation of your appointment, which means that you've booked your visa appointment. You know on what day it is, what embassy is at, and you can make all the arrangements in terms of making sure that you appear there, in terms of travel and everything. And then you bring all your financial documents, your bank statements, letters, so everything that's very, very important in order to bring along in terms of your um, application. Now, of course, your acceptance letter, your admittance letter from the university is very important. Also, please, if you have any specific, because in terms of financial documents requirements, it will vary. Um, uh, so please look at your institution, your particular country that you're applying from, the embassy and the requirements. You can reach out to your local educational advisor that you're working with to advise you further. But if you do have any questions, we're also happy to help as well. And alongside with letter of verification and letter of acceptance. Letter of acceptance is what I mentioned earlier, which is just the admittance, the letter that you receive from the university to say you've been admitted to the university. Next slide, please. So just taking a step back again to the beginning and maybe breaking it down into pieces. I-20 application. So, preparing for your application to ensure you receive your I-20. Your educational advisors can assist you with preparing for your I-20 application, but of course our team is also here to help. In case if you have any questions, there's also university teams depending on what university you applying for. I am aware that sometimes students may want to choose to apply for various universities, but I would say, it is very important that you are, even though we wouldn't necessarily say to anybody, put all your eggs in one basket, if you know what I mean by that, but often we see there are multiple applications for various universities. Sometimes it can lead to failure as well, because you're not paying enough attention into that one particular journey and process. So it's very important, if you have your university of choice, and often you will have your favorite, right? I'm applying for that particular one. I really want for a particular reason, or I have my top two that I really want to get into. Paying as much attention, discussing with your educational advisor, and then providing all the right documents. So the process is not delayed because something is not provided along the way. It takes a lot of energy from the university to issue that I-20. And once you've been issued, so in terms of the basic documents that are required for I-20 is the copy of passport, biographic page, a proof of financial funding, as well as the sponsor's affidavit of financial support. However, again, this may slightly vary per university. So again, I would say refer to a particular, given that this is a generic webinar, refer to a particular university in terms of any specific or additional requirements. After receiving your I-20, you schedule your F1 visa interview. Next slide, please. So service, just coming back to what I said earlier, this is a student and exchange visitor. So it stands for Student and Exchange Visitor Information Systems. So it's a web-based system that maintains information on non-immigrant student and exchange visitors in the USA. So it's inevitable that that fee must be paid, and the information about you is stored in the system. Just understanding, when are you traveling, what's the duration of your course. So you need to pay that fee, and information about you will be stored. So obviously there needs to be an agreement from your side. And international students typically will require an F1 visa. Obviously, I'm sure all of you that are on this call will most likely be applying for an F1 visa, obviously the student visa. It's necessary to have the I-20 form to pay the service I-901 fee. So without the I-20, you won't be able to pay the service, and obviously you wouldn't want to pay the service because you want to make sure that you've got at least that guarantee from the university that you can be admitted. How can this service fee? You've got the link here, so you can just click on it. This PPT will be shared as well, so it will be easy to navigate. And the most common and efficient way to make the payment is online, so not face to face or anything like that. SEFP approved institution, because obviously the only such institutions will be issuing you an I-20. May accept third-party payment, meaning someone else, like a parent, can pay as well, depending obviously of the nature of your application. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So now we move on to the DS-160 application form, which is your application form for your visa. And you need to complete this in order to apply for the visa. And once this is completed, you will be paying your 160 fee, which is at the moment it stands for $160. And while you're doing this, obviously you will be scheduling your visa appointment online as you go through the process. So the appointment is scheduled online, and obviously the appointment is attended face to face, as all of you know, at your local embassy, the embassy of your choice, right? I know some of you may have to travel to a different embassy because of lack of slots. There is various situations. I hear of students often traveling to even other countries also in order to attend as well. But whatever you must do, I would suggest obviously you do it as quickly as possible in terms of booking that once you've done the previous steps that I've mentioned, which is paying obviously the fee as well as receiving your I-20 first. But don't rush in terms of selecting your slots. What I personally would suggest is that you select your morning slot if possible. As you normally, I would say this, and I hear that a lot from the experience even of the former visa officers, that usually at the beginning of the day when your mind is fresh, the officer mind is fresh, I think things can go even more positively. So I would strongly suggest that it is selected in the morning. And if you have that slot available, if it isn't, I mean, you could potentially wait, but if not, then I guess you need to select whatever's available, because sometimes you may not have that many appointments to play around with. Once the form is completed, you print it and you keep the DS-160 barcode page, as you will need to take this with you to your interview. Obviously, I've already mentioned about scheduling your appointment. That's what this part is about, and obviously you do that as soon as possible. If we can move on to the next slide, please, as well. And this is just a snapshot. What do you do? What are the steps? And I've already mentioned majority of this. So you need to get accepted to a SFP approved university. You receive your I-20, and then you've got the link to pay your service fee. You pay your service fee. You then apply, you make your DS1, you complete your DS-160 visa application, and you pay your DS-160 fee. That means, and you select your appointment as well, therefore your visa appointment is booked. And as I said earlier, point between 4 and 5 is you make sure you attend your guidance session with the uni team, and Saula is going to talk about that more in detail as well later on. And you schedule and attend your biometric screening and F1 interview with the necessary documents required by the US Embassy location you will visit. So take your time, review what documents are required. You will get all the guidance as well from your confirmation, but do not hesitate if there is any doubt to reach out to your educational advisor, or also reach out to us if you have any questions. There is an email address you can contact as well, which I'm happy for Isabella to provide at the end, in case if there are any doubts on, for example, your educational advisor is busy or anything like that, and you just need to clarify on a question. If we can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we've talked about the process, and I've summarized the process, and I hope everyone's clear on it. If there are any questions, I can see there are some questions already coming through, so I'm hoping we're going to be able to answer them as well. But in terms of the F1 visa interview tips, what can I say to you? I think the most important thing is to remember that there are no set questions. Every interview process, every interview is different. And the intent of the interview is to understand whether the student's intentions. So let me say it like that. Every visa officer that's going to sit in front of you, their first aim is going to be to determine is whether you have genuine intent. I hope you can still hear me. Apologies, I'm having some issues with my mic. Isabella, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. So, they're going to look at you or your student that you're advising and think, okay, does this student come across like a genuine student? And we're going to break all of this down into pieces in a minute. But do their body language is natural? Are they talking in a natural way? Are they scripted? What is a little bit disheartening for me to see, and I will be honest with all of you here, and I want to make it personal because it's very important that all of you hear my message, is that we still hear a lot of you attend our guidance session and say to us, my educational agent told me to say this, and I didn't know, and I'm supposed to say this. If the student says that in a visa interview, they are immediately failed. Therefore, it is very important that the research is coming from the heart. And I will say one thing that Saula also says always in the webinars that she delivers. If you're making a purchase on a car, right, or if you're buying something important that's going to be part of your life for a while, are you going to make a research about what you're buying? Let's say if you're buying a car. Of course you are. Therefore, it's very, very important we think in the same terms in terms of your education. Your education is your future, it's everything. It will determine, your pathway often, and where you're going to end up in life. Therefore, of course, you take advice from your educational agent, and you guys play extremely important role in this journey. But it's important for you, if you're the student, to make your own decision and to make informed decision as to why you're choosing that particular university. Have your own reasons. Look at the social media page, look at the Facebook page, look at various, often students are surprised, why am I being asked about faculty and so on. This is not an uncommon question to hear, because if you're really interested in a university, you will want to know what sort of teacher am I going to come across? What am I going to learn? What are the modules? Is there even the modules that I'm going to be interested in that I can gain from? So I think this is very important. Now, the message for educational advisors, I would say definitely challenge a student. So if they're applying, ask them why they've applied for that particular, why they're choosing. And I'm sure you will have more than one offering in terms of the universities that your agency is offering. So both sides, but it's really, really important. Now, going back just to this here, what I was saying, they will look at you and you need to prove that your intentions are genuine, that you don't want to settle. However, if you are asked about ties in your home country, because these are very common reasons for rejection, you haven't proven that you have enough ties in your home country, therefore you may want to settle in the US, and therefore you are rejected. You don't need to jump at the question. Take a minute to think and answer the question. Sometimes I see students straight away, even the interviewer didn't finish the question. They say, no, 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 I'm definitely going back home. I'm definitely not settling. And it sounds a little bit, for lack of a better word, maybe a little bit desperate in terms of the way they answer it. Therefore, it's very important you just take your time, you answer genuinely. And of course, your genuine answer is why are you choosing that particular education. It goes without saying USA has got the greatest assets in the world in terms of, you know, so, but I think you need to prove that you're not going to want to stay there post. You're going there mainly only for study purposes, right? Um, your US consular website will have the list of most of the required documents, and you have the QR codes where you can schedule the visa guidance sessions here, because preparation is equally important to guidance. I recently saw a video of a student on LinkedIn, and he literally said, I failed 4 times and I passed on the fifth attempt. And I think, and the person asked, the person who was leading the interview said to him, but what did you learn then? Why do you feel you failed 4 times and you've passed the fifth time? He said, I really underestimated the power of preparation and the power of research. I thought I knew it all. Huh? And I just didn't do enough research, and I realized as I went along that there was more layers of the onion I kept peeling, and I needed to learn more and I needed to research more. So in our head, we often may think, well, I'm coming from a genuine point, I'm going to know what to say. But it's not often possible to just improvise so well once you're there in a nervous environment in front of a US visa officer. You're on the spot, your time is limited. So you do want to make sure you sort of really revise your important areas as to why. Okay, perfect. So these are your QR codes. You can book either if you're a little bit more shy or you want more generic feedback, you can book a group session with us, which is completely free of charge. And you can also book a personalized session with us, which is a sort of a mock style interview question session, where you will be expected to answer questions and almost act as if you are in a visa interview. And then at the end, you'll be given feedback as to where you need to improve or if you need to improve anyway. So for the second one, I would say first it's better to attend the group one and then you do the personalized one. If you're completely unprepared for the personalized one, first do your research and only then attend, because otherwise you're going to just miss out. Slots are getting booked up really quickly, especially ahead of our summer intakes. So I would say take your chance and book as soon as possible. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So as I was saying earlier, there are many areas that contribute towards your visa approval. And I already mentioned visa documentation is obviously one of the crucial parts. Without that, you can't go through anything. So your supporting documents, making sure that you've read through everything and you have not forgotten anything. We've heard of students denied because literally they have everything prepared because of nerves. They didn't rehearse and they didn't bring their admittance letter. And that's what the officer asked for. Sometimes officers may not ask for anything. You bring all your documents and you only provide them or give them to the officer if you ask to do so. They may ask you one question and they've already reviewed your prior documentation prior to your interview. They may not ask you, but you must have it all organized in a little folder, nice and neat prior. And obviously your confirmation, as I said, DS-160, and just knowing the time and reading the room is very important in terms of just following the guidelines and answering the question. Student case. So, fact of your situation. Of course, sometimes there may have been a situation that you've been previously rejected. This is not the end of the world. It happens to a lot of students, but you must be able to learn from this situation. Therefore, if you've been previously rejected, number one, we do not hide any of that information. That needs to be disclosed ASAP. Of course, if you asked about that. If not, you know, if you asked, have you been previously rejected, and you have, then you say, yes, I have, and give more details. It's very important that you remember when, how, what happened, what were you asked, in case if the officer may have more questions about that. Um, Understanding the visa type you're applying for, the purpose of your travel, the details of your time in the US, that you may even be asked, okay, what is the accommodation? Have you thought about booking anything yet? I understand that you haven't yet passed your visa, but where are you going to be staying? What's your plan? So the general student case is very important. Just having all of that, and all of that making sense and aligning. And I think um, when I say student case, also is just in terms of any details that you may be asked. When did you graduate from your high school? Can you give me a date? If something doesn't align, or let's say you've said something earlier and then you're something else at the end of it, and it does not align, it may lead to your rejection. And we have seen cases like that as well. In terms of visa officer, so like I said, reading the room. So there is that cultural understanding. We completely understand there may be a cultural barrier. There may be sometimes you may have misunderstood the question, or you may have, the accent. I would strongly suggest, I have gone through an interview myself previously for various countries, and I can understand how nerve-wracking that is. What I did personally was watch videos on YouTube in that particular accent. I always suggest to any students, watch movies on Netflix in American that are done by USA, and it would just make you a little bit more comfortable uh, with the accent, so you can understand. Because let's be honest, the that goes back and forth is a lot more likely to be approved, right? If you've got, a conversation that flows, and then you're answering the questions and there is no sort of awkward gaps. So you want to work on that ahead of the time. Practice with your peers. Do you have any friends that already traveled in the past? Ask them as well. What was their experience? There is a lot of focus groups as well that you can go to, and applications that you can sign up for in order to just familiarize yourselves a little bit more. And the student presentation, so general confidence, presentation of the facts, effective communication, and just the fact that you're prepared for any question. Uh, and I know it's easy to say confidence, and of course it's a stressful environment, but try not to fidget or cross your arms. Just a normal, um, genuine body language. It was interesting. One time, a student told me, I had a conversation at one of the conferences, and a student told me that he took a couple acting classes just to kind of familiarize themselves with the presentation and with more confidence, um, and just the public speaking as well. Even though you are only talking to the officer, if you do find yourself really, really nervous and that may hinder your ability, there are many things that you can do in order to practice ahead. So that's me, I guess. If we move on to the next slide, I think. Um, oh, okay. So there is one more, and I think I've already covered all of this. So just summarizing, really, really important. As a matter of policy, all visa applicants are presumed to be intending immigrants and therefore ineligible unless they prove otherwise. Effective communication. So I think it goes without saying. So visa officer may not look at your documents, may ask questions. They may decide whatever they do. I've heard recently students are asked 1, 2 questions, and then they are asked to sort of finish, to wrap up their interview. So clear communication, doing the best that you can for the questions that you ask. And that cultural context that I mentioned earlier, which I don't think I need to go into because I've covered it quite in detail. So these three are very, very important factors that contribute towards a success. Thank you, and I'll hand over to Saula because I think it's very, very important that we now cover just the visa interview guidance and preparation itself, because this is what contributes towards a success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kasha. So now that we know an overall student journey towards receiving a visa, now that we know more or less all of the components that are needed in order to apply for the visa, let's get into the actual visa interview and how it may look like. So as Kasha already mentioned, your interview will vary from student. There are no set questions, and there might only be one question, there might be five, or there might be 10 questions asked. You do not know which student you're going to be. At the same time, what's really important to remember, and I know I'm repeating myself, and I'm also repeating what Kasha said, but it's really important. There are no set questions. So if you're going on ChatGPT and asking, what am I going to be asked on a visa interview? It's going to give you answers. But is this going to be correct? Unfortunately, no, because every student is different. Every case is different. So we don't know what you're going to be asked. And actually trying to get this set of questions by asking your friends that already applied, by asking Google, Quora, or ChatGPT will hinder your application. Why and how, I'm going to go to later. It might sound also scary. We don't know what's going to be asked, so how can we actually prepare for this visa interview? While we don't know the actual questions, we can suggest the areas of preparation that will help you in your interview. So again, you might just be asked one question, but you do not know which one. So it's better to prepare on all the research points. And as Kasha mentioned, if you're investing into something, if you're investing your future, your time, your money, you should be considerate about it. You wouldn't want to just throw your time and money at something you haven't even read about. So number one is finances. Remember, you might be asked about your finances, and you should be able to speak about it. So that's your tuition fee, living expenses, and sponsors. So the most common mistakes we hear students do is number one, speak in their local currency instead of US dollars. Always be prepared to speak in US dollars. If you do use your local currency, you might be asked to convert the money on the spot, and that might go down very badly. So just remember, you're going for a US visa interview, speak in US dollars. And another thing that I sometimes hear students do, especially younger ones, saying that they're not really sure how much is their tuition fee or not entirely remembering how much are the living expenses because their parents are sponsoring. While it's absolutely fine that the parents are sponsoring, they're sponsoring your future, students' education. So the student should still know all the prices accurately. Number two, but remember before going to visa interview is your motivation and interests. So why did you choose this study program? Not why you believe it's a good reason to choose this study program, not why somebody told you it's a good reason to choose that study program, but why do you want to study? And be personal, think about yourself, think why did I embark on this journey? And be prepared to incorporate it in your answers. Presentation is also very important. So dress code, remember dress at least semi-formal, be on time. And I know in different parts of the world, being on time means very different things. And as I know, uh, there's people joining this webinar from all parts of the world. I'm going to be extremely specific here. Don't be on time, be early. Be 30 minutes minimum before your appointment. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe you're going to get into traffic. Maybe there's going to be no parking spot. Maybe you won't be able to get into the building on time. If you're late, your visa will be rejected. Don't risk it. Appointments are rare. As you know, you do not want to waste your appointment. Be on time. And also, rushing in last second while you're hyperventilating, just trying to breathe, will not help you with your answers. Come early, breathe deeply, relax, and be prepared to attend. And document preparation. So as Kasha already mentioned, there are documents that you need to print and carry with you. We see a lot of students carrying many supporting documents that are not on the list. Well, that's absolutely fine, and it might actually support your application. Remember one golden rule. If you're not asked for a document, do not present a document. Only when you're asked for the document, give that specific document or documents, but not the whole pile. All right? Then living in the USA. Travel arrangements, campus, accommodation, dependence. So does your university require you to stay on campus, or are you allowed to stay off campus? If so, what are you choosing? What are the prices involved? How far from the university? So think about everything about campus, accommodation, and so on. Future plans, one of the most important things to think about before your visa application, and even before applying to university, really. So, what are your plans after your studies? And when thinking about your plans after your studies, think it think about it in educational aspect. So, how are these future plans actually supported by the course you're about to study? And also remember, very important, ties to your home country. So, so, are you actually coming back after your studies? And if yes, do you have any proof? Institution details. So, USPs of the institution, which is unique selling points. So, the university you're applying to, what's special about it? And it's really easy to go online and just go to the website and read the first 5 things that come up there why the university is special, learn it by heart, and go to the visa interview. That unfortunately will fail you. Why? Because when thinking about why this university, why this study program, it's not as important that you learn it by heart, but you need to talk from your heart. Think of why it's important for you. For some, it's going to be student and teacher ratio. For others, that might not be an important factor, and location is going to be the best factor about it. For others, it's going to be modules. Think about what's the most important for you and try to speak about that area. So study modules, alumni, professors, etc. is also really good to do your research. Your personal details as well. So such as your work and study history. So you might be asked about your previous education, previous work. So just remember to look at it briefly before the interview. I know it sounds simple, but when you're nervous, it's better to be more prepared. And I said it before and I will repeat it again, what's unique about you? And travel details, previous international travel and international travels of your family members. But for this point, we're going to go later into slides. But for now, within the next slide, I would like to talk about common interview mistakes. So, what are the common interview mistakes that we see our students currently encounter? And if we go to the next slide, we're going to see that number one, and as Kasha mentioned as well, is not enough research. So applicants are expected to have a comprehensive understanding of the university, the chosen study program, country they plan to study in, and so on. And this lack of research can actually give the impression that you're not genuinely interested or committed to the educational journey, leading to an interview fail. As mentioned before, you wouldn't really just throw your money into a puddle. You would do research before buying anything. So you should do enough research about a country, the institution, and the course you're investing your future in. And if we go to the next slide, we're going to speak a bit more about low levels of research and examples of it. So for example, university knowledge. How would this low research show that students who cannot name specific facilities, resources, or notable features of the university, or for example, unaware where the university is located or its reputation in the field of study? And I hear a lot about the university's location. USA is a big country, so saying that my university is located in the south doesn't really specify where your university is located. And I see the other extreme, where the students learn the postcode, the hall address, and the name of the campus and the number on the street by heart. But if given the map, are not able to point even remotely close to where it's on the map. So just remember, just go on the map, even if it's Google Maps, look at where your university is located, think about why you like the area, and think why do I want to study in this area. Study program. So cannot explain why they chose the specific program and how it aligns with the career goals. And here we come back with the future plans as well, as mentioned previously. unfamiliar with course content, structure, or unique aspects of the program could be another point of where low level of research is noticed. Country knowledge as well, does not know basic information about the country, such as culture, cost of living, or weather, unaware of visa regulations or post study work opportunities. So think if you're asked why US, can you answer? And then if asked why not Australia, can you actually answer? And if we go to the next slide, I want to briefly talk about how to avoid it. So, how to avoid being rejected due to not enough research? Well, the obvious answer: do your research. So, research thoroughly, explore the university's website, program details, and local area. Everyone's different, and everyone prefers a different method of research. I'll tell you what, there's no perfect research method. Do what is the best for you. As long as you can invest your time into it and you're actually not doing it absent mindedly, just do your research. Even if it's going through social media, website, or the program details, whatever fits you best. Practice responses. So be prepared to articulate why is this the best choice for education and future, and be prepared for unexpected answers. I hear it so often from students, oh, but I didn't know I'm going to be asked this. Be prepared for unexpected answers. This interview is not a test. For a test, you know what you need to learn in order to answer the questions. This is not a test, it's a conversation. So that's why you cannot really go on scripts. That's why you cannot Google questions you will be asked. Because if you're only concentrating on the script or what you memorized, the first unexpected question you will fail. So be prepared for unexpected. And ask for help. Reach out to your advisors, counselors, my team, or guidance in improving your knowledge. Even sometimes speaking with your friend, asking your friend to act as a visa counselor could also be a good practice. But as Kasia mentioned, and I will mention again with links later in the session, you can also book a session with us. But the more practice, the better. All right, and let's go to the next slide where I'm going to speak about the other reasons for failing an interview. So providing scripted or generic answers, and this one is very important. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is, and I really hope that if you are not being attentive throughout the presentation, you will switch on this one because this is one of the most important parts. So scripted students are those who rehearse their answers to common interview questions without truly understanding the content. Similarly, students providing very generic answers often give vague, impersonal, cliched responses that don't really offer any inside information about them, their individual circumstances, aspirations, or reasons for pursuing education abroad. And if we go to the next slide, I'm going to speak a bit more in detail about it. So, how is it different speaking naturally on a script? There's a lot of information on the slide, but I'm going to start with my personal experience. Together with my team, we do hundreds of interviews per week. We hear a student come into either an interview or a consultation, depending on the university, and from the first sentence, we know they're scripted. It's the robotic sound. It's sounding like everyone else. It's having the same answer as everyone else. It's your body language. Everything about it screams that you're on script. You can be the best actor in the world, and the script is still visible because when you do so many interviews every day, day by day, it's impossible to show that you're scripted. And scripted students will get a visa rejection. So why scripted speech doesn't work? As I already mentioned, it's the robotic delivery, lack of authenticity, missed adaptations, which means scripted talks can prevent a speaker from adjusting to the audience reactions, missing unimportant feedback, and it's the over-rehearsed feel. So memorized lines can make a speaker sound overly prepared, preventing a genuine spontaneous flow. And then why does speaking naturally works? So engagement and connection. So natural speaking feels more conversational, which helps build rapport and trust with the audience. Because remember, this is not a test. You didn't study for it. You did research for it. It's a conversation. It also gives you the flexibility. Being unscripted allows for adaptability, helping to adjust the questions, audience energy, and unforeseen situations. And as I mentioned before, these unexpected questions. Really, all questions should be unexpected as we don't know what you're going to be asked. Authenticity. So natural speech reflects the speaker's true personality, making it easier for the audience to connect emotionally. And better persuasion. Appears more confident, present, and trustworthy. I said it before and I say it again. Sometimes just answering to the question, I don't know, if in the end you did not do the script, looked at the script, can actually benefit you if you say that I am not sure, I will do my research, then speaking on script. Speaking on script will always get you rejected. And let's go to the next slide where I'm going to speak a little bit more about scripted answers. So I'm just going to give you an example, really. One more example of why scripted students don't pass and why scripted answers don't work. So a lot of times we hear an answer after completing this course, I want to work at Nestle, Facebook, or Google. While this could be a good answer if the answer is actually specific to the student and true to the student, and that's actually what they want to do, if this is a scripted answer, you might have hundreds of follow-up questions. And I'm just giving a few here. Why these companies? Have you tried applying to a job there? Which country are the offices located in? How will this course help you achieve it? What is your plan B? Which position at this company? And so on and so forth. So if the answer is genuine to the student, these questions, although not the easiest, will not be the hardest either. However, if this answer was never true to the student's heart, this is where the student will not be able to continue answering the follow-up questions. And in the next slide, I'm also going to speak about generic answers. So what are they and why don't they work? So just to give you an example, what is a generic answer? I chose to sleep in this hotel and not in another one because it has walls. I chose to go to this library and not the other one because it has books. I wanted to buy this car and not the other one because this one has four wheels. So it's the answers that can be applied to many institutions and many countries. So vague response, why doesn't it work? Vague responses on academic goals. Generic answers like I want to study in US because it has good universities don't show why you choose your specific school, major, or how it fits into your future plans. So for example, I want to study in US because it has good universities. I can say that about many countries. I want to study in Germany because it has good universities. I want to study in Australia because it has good universities. It's not specific to US, that means it's generic. Weak university knowledge. Saying something broad like this university is famous doesn't demonstrate you research the school's unique programs or why it's the right fit for you. And the same example, why US? If it fits to many universities, it's generic. Unprepared for common questions. So generic answers, especially about financing or returning plans, suggest you haven't thoroughly prepared. But enough of what doesn't work, what works instead. So specific academic reasons. Explain why you chose university, referring its programs, professors, opportunities that align with your career plans. Career connection, clearly outline how your course study directly ties into your job opportunities or career advancement. And financial transparency, give specific details on how you plan to fund your studies. It really, really ties in also with your research. If you did a thorough research yourself without somebody's help, you will most probably avoid generic and scripted answers. And if we go to the next slide, I would like to also speak about the third one, which is information inaccuracy. So providing false, misleading, or inaccurate information, whether it be related to previous visa history, family ties in the US, etc., for example, previous visa rejection, if you're lying about it, you will get rejected. And trust me when I say they will find out you're lying. And then when they do, you will get rejected. And as you probably already know, there's different levels of visa rejections, and one visa rejection is easier to overcome than the other. Lying will give you the stronger one where it's going to be really, really hard in the future to get a visa again. And if we go to the next slide, it's one of the most common heard question of mine. What if I do have a previous visa rejection? What do I do then? Number one, stay calm. A previous visa rejection does not necessarily mean an automatic rejection again. You do have hope. Number two, review your rejection slip. So when you were rejected in the past, it doesn't matter which country, you should have received a reason for rejection, a document. Carefully read this document, read the rejection reason stated on the slip. If you do not understand what's written there, and it sometimes happens, if there's a code, try to Google the code. If you still don't understand, book a session with us, bring the visa rejection to us, and we will read it together with you. And also, important reminder, if you do get a visa rejection, don't just rip it and throw it out. It is an important document, and if you're going to be reapplying, you will want to refer back to it. Seek help if needed. So as mentioned, if the reasons for rejection is unclear, reach out to us for guidance and we should be able to help you just to understand why you were rejected. Next one, prepare for questions about your rejection. Be ready to answer questions such the country you applied for. So which country has rejected your visa? The year of rejection. So when was your visa rejected? Specific reasons of the denial. And again, read your slip. If you don't understand still the specific reasons for your denial, reach out. Strengthen your current application. So demonstrate how your circumstances have changed or how you address the previous reasons for rejection. So if your visa has been rejected and now you're going again for a visa application, but it's absolutely 100% the same application and same preparation for an interview, etc., that won't help you. Think about your previous visa rejection, concentrate on it, and think, how did it change and how should I change? What should I change? Because if you're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, that's not going to happen. Look at your previous visa rejection. And remember, a strong and honest application can improve your chances of success. I really need everyone to remember this. Strong and honest. Do your research and be honest. And that's going to be the one thing that's actually going to improve your chances. And if we go to the next slide, preparation is key. So as Kasia already mentioned, and I saw Isabella also mentioned the link in the chat, you can again book it through here. If you scan it, you're going to go to a booking page. We do offer help. We offer group sessions and mock F1 interview sessions. So in the group session, you're going to have a bit of a visa guidance, and this is a students that, as Kasia mentioned, perhaps are slightly shy to go one-on-one with our guidance officer and as well haven't done too much research yet, while our F1 interview sessions are one-on-one with our guidance specialist, where you're already asked to do your research before this session. So what's going to happen there is a mock style interview session where in the end you're going to be given feedback of areas of improvement and at the same time your strong areas as well. Perhaps you're exceeding on something and perhaps your student is brilliant and we need to give that feedback as well. But book your F1 visa interview when you already done your research, book your group session when you haven't done your research yet. Our advisors can advise you where to look for information and how to actually prepare. All right, and with this, I'm going to hand over back to Isabella. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Solly. Thank you, Kasia. I think we still have a few minutes to answer some questions. And I see that Kasia already included here some that she wants to answer live. So let's start by what is the U.S. visa turnaround time? Does U.S. offer immigration pathway after graduation?
I can take this one. So in terms of the US visa turnaround time, again, this will really depend on the region and the country you're applying for. And I'm not sure what exactly you're referring to here in terms of, and maybe I should have responded to you to ask for that, whether you are asking about when you receive your visa or overall turnaround time, because obviously there will be different touch points in terms of your application. So maybe do specify on that particular one, and I'm happy to answer. Now, in terms of the second part of the question, which is, does the US offer a migration pathway after graduation? I think the main thing that you should be aware of that is very, very good is optional practical training, which is OPT, which allows you to receive up to 12 months of employment authorization. It could be before completing their academic studies, which is called pre-completion, but mostly it happens after completing your academic studies, which stay in the United States where you are employed. And obviously, if you're applying for an additional, then moving from undergraduate degree to then postgraduate degree, let's say doing your master's, you're then allowed for, you can do your additional 12 months. So periods of OPT cannot overlap, however, and obviously it will depend on, so it will be the DSO of the school that will recommend the OPT in CVs, and the student does not have to, DSO can recommend OPT. So, and sorry, I don't know if it's my mic, just recommend that you look in terms of your additional possibility in order to be able to extend your stay and be able to work, because you can work for any employer as long as the training relates to the student's major course of study. But of course, there are specific requirements that you need to meet in order to be able to receive, to have that, or to be eligible. So you would need to look into this separately.
Thank you, Kasia. We have another question. It is, could these students be self-financial supporter, for example, without any sponsor?
Absolutely. So, you need to be able. So, I think what is the main general rule? A prospective student must have a financial evidence showing that they option funds to cover tuition and living expenses during study. And evidence of such a financial ability is not limited to just family bank statement documentation from a sponsor. So it's either you or the allowed sponsors. I can see that there was also a question there that I've answered, but also just to say to everybody who may be wondering, some universities, sorry, can you hear me? Some universities do allow.
Now we can. Sorry, Kasia, I think it cut it a little bit. If you can repeat yourself, please.
Apologies, sorry, I think it's my. Actually, let me. Now?
We can hear you now.
Please repeat. Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, apologies for that. So what I was saying, where did you lose me? So I can repeat that again.
I think we can repeat again about you talk about the university. So if you can just repeat, because I think it was cut.
Sure. So I think, of course, it can be yourself or this chosen sponsor that is sponsoring your application. And you need to be able to show that you have sufficient funds to cover tuition and living expenses. There's specific, obviously, requirements that there are, and you will be provided that by the university. It's also listed, as part of the journey through your application. And you need to be showing, obviously, relevant bank statements in order to show that you have enough money in your bank account in order to sustain yourself. Now, there's various areas there, and obviously, uni also helps because we go through your financials as well and support you with that process. So, if there are any questions, you can reach out to either your local representative, or you can reach out to our admissions team who will provide you with that information, or even the compliance team that is here on this call today. So, but just to specify the sponsors, because someone also asked about the sponsors specifically, who can be the sponsor? It really depends on the institution. Most of our uni partners that we work with accept, parents, accept even distant relatives. They're not very specific. It can even be friends for some of the universities, but you really need to ask this question in relation to the particular university you've applied for because it does vary. It can vary.
Thank you. We have one more. Is applying with the spouse will affect the student's profile?
It's a very good question. That's why I said I want to answer it live because it's never should anybody be discriminated on the basis of applying, you know, if they want to come with a spouse or however so let's say you're applying for that you're coming with dependents, right? Um, However, what we normally recommend, given how complex this process already is and how nerve-wracking already this process is, that you first settle yourself. And often it is a lot easier, and we see that from experience perspective as well. When you've sorted yourself out and everything to do with you, only then you think about, okay, can I bring them? You know, uh, rather than straight away opting for that. But of course, if you want to go with the dependents right away, because it's not possible, you need to just consider two areas before you attend the visa interview, before you, even opt for this process. Have you thought about every part of the process? Because you will be asked about, let's say if you want dependent as in a child, where is the child going to be attending school? What age are they? Have you looked at all the areas in terms of accommodation? Because of course it's no longer just yourself, it is also the now family member that is involved. Now, Saulo, I don't recall this, but maybe you know the answer to this. If our universities allow dependents on campus, I believe they don't. I think it's only the student that can stay on campus accommodation. I'm not sure if there are any other exceptions to this, but usually you want to, if you're a freshman, if you're going you want to really apply for, um, you absolutely going to be living on campus. So, in terms of your masters, which is where you'd be considering dependence in the first place, um, again, we still strongly recommend you living on campus at least in the first year. So, again, it depends on your situation. So I couldn't say yes or no. I absolutely am saying if it's a must, then yes. But what I would suggest from experience is that you consider yourself first and you check every single part of the process for yourself first before you think of anybody else in terms of dependency, because the process is more complex when you bring dependence.
Thank you. We have another one. Are family members or friends allowed to accompany students to these interviews? And what is your advice on the use of mobile phone during these interviews?
It's an interesting question. Sarah, feel free to also come in here. And I read something somewhere, and I hope I'm not going to be harsh when I say this, but there was an answer actually from a former visa officer one time online that I read on this, and it literally said, if you're not able to come in to your interview yourself, then you're not probably prepared to fully travel because obviously you're going to be by yourself. However, I completely understand, and I know it's a bit harsh in terms of the way it was worded, but and then you may be nerves accompanied. It's your first time and so on. So nothing stops you with absolutely coming with your parents, let's say, or with your relatives to the actual embassy. But please bear in mind you're not going to be allowed to enter your visa interview with your parents. You need to take your visa interview alone. And the phones are not allowed. So you're going through the security points. You're going to be asked to put your belongings through like a scanner, just like at the airport, that's what happens at embassies. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions. We won't be able to answer all of them, but we'll try to answer some more. Um, in this period when many students are seeking immigration opportunities through the study route, how does the student present their post-study aspirations without risking a visa refusal?
Sarah, do you want to take this one?
Sorry, I cut out there for a second. Could you please repeat the question? I'm very sorry.
Yes, of course. Mary's asking, How does a student present their post-study aspirations without risking a visa refusal?
So, post study aspirations without risking a visa refusal. So, as I mentioned in the session, your answers really will depend on you. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to, I cannot give you a correct answer. The correct answer will depend on the student. But what can I say is think about your future plans and think honestly. What do I want to do after this course and how will this course help me do it? Think about the modules you're going to study and how will this module help in your future plan? Perhaps you need to learn perhaps you need to learn a few modules in order to open your business. Perhaps you need to have international experience because it also ties in with your plans back home. So look at the course, think about your future plans, and try to connect the both to your home country and your future plans. That would be my best advice.
Thank you. I do have a question that is not from our partners, but it's from me. If there are any requirements in order to book the session, if the student needs to have like the interview, the visa interview with the embassy already scheduled to do the mock session or not, anyone um, can do
So
the guidance session.
that's a brilliant question, and anyone can do the session as long as they are applying through in uni institutions. So if you're applying to any other university, not through in uni, you will not be able to schedule a session. However, if you're applying to any of the in uni universities or colleges, you will and can have this session.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I see we are running out of time, but I see that you have a lot of questions. Hassan, do you want to answer any specific question before I go? Sorry.
Thank you, Isabella. That's a good point. I think I'm just looking through all the questions now. I can see there is questions still about, what question, how should I answer a specific question? I think Amandeep asked, what's your suggestion and some examples about question, what's your plan after completing this course? And I know Sally just answered the question in terms of the aspiration because it was a very good question in terms of how do I explain, what are my aspirations post graduation without kind of saying, oh, I want to stay in the US, right? I am going to come back home. So I think all these types of questions again, I'm going to reiterate, please book the session. This is where you can really explore it. And Saul, correct me if I'm wrong, I think mock the group session will be good in terms of just the generic information about the university or any questions you have in terms of how to research information. Whereas the mock F1 interview session can be more personalized and you can ask a specific question and actually rehearse in terms of, okay, that's what I want to say. This is what I'm thinking. Um, where you can have genuine feedback. Now, um, there is no right or wrong answer, so I couldn't give you an answer to this question. Apologies, because it's really up to every student and whatever they. But the answer needs to be as genuine as it is. So it needs to be a genuine answer. What are your plans upon completing this course? The only tip I will give you is that the visa office is looking at the answer, in terms of what are your plans to go back home. You're not obviously going to say, I'm planning to stay here and, I mean, that would be direct. Unless you're
Allez,
applying
Shubham.
for PT or anything like that, then obviously that changes the
Shubham.
situation. Um, so, what are you planning? How are you going to benefit from
हाँ
this course?
वो हो गया क्या
How
तुम्हारा
are you
क्या नाम
going to
था
take this knowledge back home? And
कौन सा
how
हुआ
are you
क्या
planning
किया
to utilize this knowledge? Why did you
तुमने
apply for
हाँ
this program in the first place? And then you can use that. And there may be questions also around that, in terms of why USA versus your home country. What else better does it offer? And believe me, guys, saying USA is the land of dreams doesn't help,
ये
even though
रोटी चली गई क्या
everybody will agree with that.
रोटी ना
USA does provide top
और
notch
सोना
and
भी
the best education,
सोना
one of the best education and universities in the world. However, you still need to be more specific. So please just
क्या बात करें
navigate through
तो
these questions, find the answers to those, and then you'll have the answer to the actual question.
Thank you so much. I just like to remind everyone that this presentation is being recorded, so you will receive the recording in your email, and all the questions that wasn't addressed during the presentation will be answered. We have your email, so we'll be sending the answer to your emails. So don't worry. And if you have, you didn't include it here, but if you have any questions that weren't covered during the presentation, you can also reach out to us at guidance@immuniglobal.com, and I'll include it in the chat as well, so you will be able to see it. So thank you so much, everyone, to be with us today. Thank you so much, Katya and Sally, for your time. It was a very inspiring session, and I hope it helped our students and our education advisors to support the students as well in this visa interview session. So thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Isabella.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
So